All right, hello, folks. Welcome back to the Gecko Exchange podcast. I'm Jason. Anthony can't be here today. Not feeling well, so we're just gonna kind of do this with Frank and I. Show notes, real quick, or housekeeping. Make sure you guys are checking out Monster Box Enclosures. The website is live, up and running. We just got our stuff in the warehouse, so stuff should be getting sent out pretty soon. So go ahead on there, order them up. It's uh, great. It's a great product for not a whole lot of money. We know how people, you always want the best for our animals, and this is something that's more affordable to, to people like us, to keepers that keep and can't afford like those massive PVCs and stuff like that. Well, and then other than that, today we have a special guest on. Been in the hobby for years. I've watched a lot of his YouTube. I've watched plenty of his interviews he's been on. The man's just a wealth of knowledge. Frank, how are you doing today, man?
All right. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Like I said, second podcast of the day. Caffeined up, ready to go. So, kind of before we get into talking about, we're going to talk about some toad heads. We're going to talk about some lacertas, but before that, like, what made you fall in love with reptiles?
I mean, it seems to always have been there in me. It's been a part of me for as long as I can remember, back to when I was in elementary school and even before elementary school. I was born in Houston, Texas, and I remember as a kid catching, anoles and geckos and little skinks and toads and even rattlesnakes and copperheads sometimes. And it's just always been something that I've been really interested in. I've never not liked them. I think there's probably a connection to dinosaurs. I was a big dinosaur nut as a kid, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's like the same thing with a lot of people. I think it's very much just an intrinsic thing where it's just like it's always been a part of us for whatever reason.
Gotcha. Yeah, like I said, like when people ask me, it's like I love the predatory instinct of the reptiles. We really don't get to see it with our like mammals or like our dogs and stuff like that we keep. So with reptiles, we do get to see some of that predatory instincts. They're hunting and stuff like that. So that's what is one of those reasons that I fell in love with reptiles. Of course, dinosaurs and all that good stuff. Like me, like my favorite dinosaur. I love a velociraptor. I love the like I
Yeah,
said, the hunting skills, the the coordination that from what they say, we never really got this, we never saw that. We see what we see in the movies and stuff like that, but those are some of the things that I was like, okay, I love. This is what makes me love these reptiles, stuff like that. Um,
yeah,
so
those
I mean, say you
pictures are
work
really
with a
interesting.
yeah, you work with a bunch of different, like you have a wide variety of reptiles that you keep and you breed. What drew you to these toad heads?
Well, the toadhead agamas they're just bizarre. They're crazy animals. If anyone hasn't seen them in person or seen pictures of them, they have a defense display where they flare out neck flaps around their
Yeah,
mouth, and it almost looks like the movie Alien
Predator.
Predator. And yeah, and then in addition to that, they have a tail that they do tail flagging like curly tails do in Florida, and that and
Hmm.
around but so they flail the tail around and they're very active. A lot of people don't realize this until you keep them, that they use that tail a lot, even when they're not necessarily showing off. Like they get excited, like when they're like, whenever they eat, when I throw food in, they get excited and that tail is like literally just, it's flailing all over the place. And
Yeah.
the typical lizard push-ups, they just have really interesting behaviors. And there's very few people breeding them. So I just felt like there was a need.
Okay. Yeah. I just got my first pair like the in October. So like I said, I'm
Yeah.
noticing all those cues that you're saying, especially like they are garbage disposals. Like they will eat almost like I'm throwing in like the beetles from the like superworms and or the that in between stages when they go into that little when they start metamorphosizing. They just eat everything. It's great. I was like, man, because I had like all these beetles in here. I was like,
Yeah.
slinging them in there. They go after them. I was like, okay, cool, great, great. No, now I don't have to waste them and do like usually I just throw them
Yeah.
in like my
Most stuff.
yeah, I use them. I used to use them just for like cleanup crew. But now it's like, all right, cool. Now I can
Hmm.
go ahead and let them eat these beetles. I was like, this is great. I love this. So I guess like for the listeners not familiar with like towhead, I mean, we just kind of go over that. No, they have that defense mechanism, which they don't really like. For me, I have not seen it at all. Like
It's very
they're
uncommon.
very bold. Yeah, they're bold. They're not secretive. Like I know they call like secret toad heads, but they're not really secretive to me. They're
Yeah.
very bold. Like today when I was trying to feed them, like they were like before I could even open it, they were just like at the window, like give me the food, give me the food, give me the
Hmm.
food. And I'm like, dang, y'all need to chill. Like one literally jumped out of my cage. I was like, dang, all right, you guys need
Yeah.
to chill out.
They have great personalities.
Yeah, they do. They do. And it's like unfortunately, like you said, not a lot of people are working with them. So it's like, okay, we need to showcase them a little bit more and show people they are a great pet lizard for you. Like for mine, like, are you able to handle yours?
My captive bred ones I can handle
Hmm.
relatively easily. I have captive bred ones that I've had for years, and then like with most of them that people have now, there was a recent large scale import that came in, and those wild caught ones are not, they don't really want to be handled, which is pretty natural and normal for a wild one. So those I don't, but like my captive bred ones are pretty, like they're very bold, like you said. And it's just like I can just put my hand in there, and they'll crawl in my hand, and they don't really like to be handled, but they also don't really care too much. They're just so bold, like you said.
Yeah, like mine, like they'll tolerate back scratches. That's what mine will
Yeah,
tolerate, like just little back scratches.
that's cool.
Like if I try to pick them up, they
Yeah.
just wiggle out, like nah, leave me alone. But if I just do a back
Hmm.
scratch, they'll stay right there and just kind of push up a little bit more, more, more. It's like all right, cool. You dig that? We're cool. That's where we that's where we kind of know that pet owner to pet relationship right there. It's like all right, that's where we're at right there. So it's like cool, cool, like that. Um, So, what kind of I guess microhabitat, or microclimate do they thrive in?
I keep them in a very simple setup, just because like there's a sand specialist species. So one of the other really cool behaviors that they have is that they can like vibrate their bodies and their feet and bury themselves straight down
Yes.
into this. Yeah, and so it's pretty much just sand in there, because they don't climb. They don't really like use caves in that much in my
Hmm.
experience. Like when they want to hide, they just bury in the sand. So I just give them like 4 inches of sand. It's pretty deep, as deep as you can give them. Honestly, would be great. And so like a lot of people, like I'll show like a YouTube video or an Instagram video, and people were like, "Oh, it's too bare in there," they're thinking like it's a bearded dragon, but like it's just taken up. You want to give them as much open sand space as possible. That's what they want, and so they just leave it big, wide open sand. But I do keep one side damp most of the time, like maybe 1/3 of the
Okay.
enclosure I will wet regularly, and I think that that's beneficial for hydration. And then also the females will lay their eggs in the damp side. There's been plenty of times I've had like a gravid female, and it'll get kind of dry in there because I do keep them quite hot most of the time. And then when I
Hmm.
wet it, then they'll immediately go and dig and lay their eggs when they're ready. Then when it's wet, um, one side is hotter than the other, so give them pretty strong basking spot of somewhere between 100 and 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and then the other side is typically in the 80s or 90s, even normal room
Okay.
temperatures, or even cooler at night, like 70s, 60s, even 50s. And then I do brumate them over the winter. That is necessary to get fertile eggs out of them. The males won't produce fertile sperm without the brumation.
Hmm.
They may mate without it, but unless they've had a chance to really shut down, and it's called like the spermatogenesis, often doesn't happen until like cooler temps. So I do
Okay.
that for them in the winter.
Yeah.
We're gearing up for that soon. Pretty soon, I'll stop feeding them and then put them out in my garage.
Okay. So are you like stop feeding them like totally like so you I guess I'm guessing you like you clear them out, let them poop out everything and boom, and then do you put them like in a little container or anything to let them go, or do you just take the whole cage out, put it in there, let them roam, do what they do, and they just
Right.
kind of sit and chill?
Yeah. So what I
Okay.
do is like 1 week. So I'll stop feeding them, leave the heat lights on like normal. stop feeding them
Hmm.
for a week, and then, like you said, clear everything out of their digestive system, and then I'll turn the heat lights off and still not feeding them for like a week or two. And then they go into my garage, which is unheated, and it gets down to like 50s and 40s. Um,
Okay.
Ideally, I would just roll the enclosures into the garage, but I don't really have the space for it. So because they're in like big 4x2 enclosures, and I have 16 of them for the toad heads. So 16 enclosures. I have like, I don't even know,
Wow.
30 some toad right now. Yeah, I bought a bunch
Damn.
when yeah. So I had like a good number of captive bred ones because I've been breeding them for a couple years now, but an import hadn't come in for years and years, and then it finally did, as you know, a number of months back. So I picked up a good number of them to add to my group here. But anyway, so I don't have the space to just move the enclosures out there. Ideally, that would be best, just let them be in their enclosure at the colder temps. But I just don't have the space. I have an old snake rack that I don't use anymore out in the garage, and they go in like this snake rack with like deep sand, and they'll just bury in there, and I'll leave them out there for a month or two, and then they come back, and then I just gradually raise the temperatures back up again.
Hmm. Man, like I keep telling myself I'm going to do that. Like where I don't feed my geckos, like my stropharis, like not
Mm-hmm.
feeding them for like a month. But I guess it's just that anxiety. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what's gonna happen, you know. So it's like, man, do I feed them? Do I not feed them? And then also, it doesn't get crazy cold here in Arizona as well. So that's the hard part of doing like a true brumation, unless I just straight up put them outside, where it might like at nighttime during the wintertime, it might hit in the 50s or something like that, 50s, 40s or something like that, you know. Oh, but like my buddy
Yeah,
was like, oh, for like silly areas, you don't really need to do it, but for some of the other strokes, you're gonna need to do that. I was like, okay, but I
yeah,
did
that's
have leaf tails like Phylloris and Saltorius, but I end up giving those to my buddy just because, like I said, I live in Arizona, so making it work was just a little too difficult for what I was doing over here.
tell you what, you could keep those Ciliaris outside all year in Arizona. I would do that if I were
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
because man, you could just get such a nice environment for them. Just keep them in the shade, but like at the same time, like it can be
Hmm.
hot like that, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I
Once
don't
once I
go
buy
true
my
blue
house,
with my.
yeah,
Mm,
once I buy my house,
yeah,
I am going to have some outside enclosures because I literally just, like I said, I just did
nice.
another podcast before this one doing about collared lizards, and I was like, those are
Hmm.
something I was thinking about. Like that right there had my wheels spinning, just like doing an
Yeah.
outside enclosure, just to try, just to experience it, see if I could be successful at that. Even these, I mean, I think maybe even these toad heads might be something as well that could maybe tolerate being out
Definitely.
in the depth. You know, just making sure they're
Yeah.
not, make sure it's getting protected by like ants and stuff like that, so they don't get
Hmm.
tore up or coyotes or stuff like that. I mean, we got certain crazy stuff out here that could mess up some because we do have coyotes that usually jump our fences. So I got to make sure I put my
Wow.
dogs in at night. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
just got to do some little precautions, but that'll
Hmm.
be later in the future.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. You have to take those precautions, like you said, but I keep animals outside as much as possible, and
Yeah.
where
Because
you
you
are,
keep your
we can
lacertas
keep
out there, right?
Yeah, yeah, they're still out there. I'm bringing them in actually tomorrow night because I have a couple
Oh,
of
yeah.
cold days coming up. They've already
Okay.
experienced a couple of frosts, but
Oh,
they're
yeah.
fine.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Uh, so, what kind of, like, I guess with them, because you said you aim for like 110 to 120 degrees, like, what wattage halogens are you using to get to that heat?
Believe it or not, only 39 watts
Really?
because it's close. It's not far off.
Okay,
I
gotcha,
have
gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
with them the lights are inside the enclosure attached to the top.
gotcha.
So it's only like 6 inches from the bulb to the
Hmm.
basking spot.
Okay, okay.
So it's quite close. And so because of that, I'm able to use relatively low wattage.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, for mine, I think I have like 250 watts, like right next to each other, because I mean, it's a little bit,
Hmm.
it's higher. It's like probably 12 inches from the top all the way to the bottom. I try putting slate on the bottom to, get a little bit, so right when they wake up they can go right on the in there, get some belly heat, get a little bit of back heat. But they done sling that sand everywhere, so everything's covered in sand. So
Yeah, I don't bother with anything else in there other than sand for that very reason. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Oh, my buddy was like, "You got too much going on in there. Take all that stuff out." I was like, "Damn,
yeah,
man, you just killed my
I know.
everything I was thinking about." I mean, all I did, I had like a
Yeah,
log in there, and then some random skulls
hmm
and some slate for like to keep that heat. But he's like, "No, take all that stuff
hmm
out." I was like, "Damn, okay."
yeah, yeah.
So
With them, most lizards, you want all that stuff in there. Give them stuff to climb on and stuff to do and go under. But they like all they want is sand.
yeah. So where did they come from in the world?
From I think a number of countries in the Middle East, like Oman, I know is one particular country, but they have a pretty wide range in the Middle East, and there's definitely multiple populations of them
Okay.
that look different but are the same species. There used to be a subspecies Galli, so it's Phrynocephalus mystaceus, and there used to be a subspecies Galli, but that's not recognized anymore. So it's just all the kinds that we have is just mystaceus, and there are a variety of other species in that genus, but the big ones with like the neck and the predator throat thing, like that's all just one species. But they do have a pretty big range, and there's definitely some variety. Like I have animals from multiple sources, and they look distinctly different.
Okay.
Ideally, I'd like to keep them separate, but with how uncommon they are, it's not really possible. And they're the same species, so I'm not too concerned.
Okay. Are they communal, or are they just keeping male to female?
Yeah, they can be. They're tricky. It's like a lot of things. Like it seems to be very individual based. Like they do have
Okay.
personalities. Some seem to do just fine in groups. Some definitely do not. Some do
Hmm.
best individually. Sometimes you can keep a male and a female together permanently. Sometimes you can only do it temporarily.
Hmm.
It really just seems to depend. Like I have a pretty good variety. Like I said, I have 16 enclosures, and I don't know, maybe like 30 animals of that species, and like some of them are in trios, and some are pairs, and some are individual. It just kind of depends.
Yeah. And I mean, so you don't separate for like after breeding season or anything like that, unless you see something happening like where you see like a female's kind of beat up or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. If I see an individual who's because like, and some of them are like really food hounds, I really go after the food, and some are kind of more shy with their eating. So like if it seems to me that one's not getting their food, or if there is a male pestering a female too much, or I often see like one female being dominant to another female, and not like in a subtle way. Like I've never seen straight up aggressive behavior, but like
Hmm.
with a lot of lizards like that, the competition and the dominance is a subtle thing, and you just have to keep an eye on it, and be ready to separate. I always tell that with people, like no matter how like quote unquote communal the reptile is, you always have to be prepared to separate
Yeah.
if one individual is not doing well, because they are all individuals.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I had to do that with my well, actually with my Stropharis, my Ciliaris pair. I had to separate them because like my male wouldn't leave my female alone. Like she ended up, yeah, she ended up giving me like 18 eggs. So I was like, all right, yeah,
Yeah,
you need to go and go chill out, go in your other enclosure because like you're just not giving her any kind of time to recover. As soon as she lays the eggs, he's right up on her again. I'm like, slow down. I want her to live. Like,
yeah,
chill out, dude.
yeah, yeah. That species is known for that pretty well. I've seen that same thing too, where a female will start to crash if you're not careful. And sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes you'll have a pair and like they're pretty mellow with their mating, and the male doesn't mess with her too much. But then sometimes they'll just go too much, and you got to separate.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's just one of them right there. Like, I think, like, when I started Daclus, I had to separate my male and female because, like, literally after my female laid a clutch of eggs, she started just crashing. So I was like, all right, let's separate them. I was talking to some folks like, yeah, that's just generally what happens, but I keep them together. They keep them together. I was like, I'm not going to do it. Sorry. So I just ended up separating them out and let her, make sure she's putting her weight back on and all that good stuff. So, like, I think my only Cerdadactylus pair that kind of stays together is my Zebrachus and my Triatus, but they're in a really big enclosure, so they have plenty of what do they call them? Just little bunch of little hiding spots where they're out of sight, out of mind type of thing with them. With let's say, has there been any kind of challenges working with these toad heads, like from breeding to caring for the babies or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. They're an easy species to keep, but they are a challenging species to breed for a number of reasons. So one, I will say that like the wild caught ones are touchy, like they're iffy. Like I said,
Hmm.
I got a good number in. I know a lot of them came in, and a good number of them came in rough shape. And as much experience as I have acclimating wild caught lizards, I had a number that didn't make it. I have a
Hmm.
number still that I've had them for months and months, and they're still not in great shape. Um, and so acclimating the wild caught is the number one hurdle. Then the number two hurdle is the brumation, is the hibernation. It can be tricky. I have lost animals over the winter that didn't make it through hibernation for whatever reason, and that hibernation or brumation, whatever you want to call it, is needed to get them to breed. So there's that, and then like if you don't get them cold, you're not going to get fertile eggs. Not many
Hmm.
anyway. And so that I would say is like the two main hurdles. But like once you get captive bred baby, like once you get fertile eggs, like they're pretty hardy in my experience. Like I've never had problems raising the babies. They're tough. You might need to separate them, if one is more of a bully than another, but other than that,
Yeah.
they're not bad at all. It's acclimating the wild caught and dealing with the brumation is are the two touchy spots.
But what's like the ideal temp for your brumation?
I mean, I don't know. I'm still experimenting. It's
Okay.
big range.
Yeah.
And they have a pretty big range in the wild. They can get quite cool. My garage gets to about 50 degrees in the winter. The thing that's tricky with it is you want it. It needs to be cold. It needs to be in the 50s to slow their metabolism down. Because if their metabolism doesn't slow down enough, then they're going to burn calories and they're going to lose
And
weight.
they want to. Okay. Yeah.
But if it's too cold, that can be an issue too, right? You don't want to get them outside their normal range. And then the other thing is too is make sure not to let them dry out in the winter because it can be that's a tricky balancing act because you don't want them too dry because they will dehydrate over the winter and they'll die, if they don't have the water that they need, but they're also not actively getting up and drinking. So you have to provide some moisture in the substrate so that they're breathing in the humidity and staying hydrated that way. But you also don't want it too wet because like a wet, cold, stagnant environment, that's, a breeding ground for like respiratory infection or something. So it's just a delicate balancing act. I found that is as long like low 50s is what I do. Give them
Hmm.
some moisture, but not too much. And I don't. When I only did like a 4 to 6 week brumation, I didn't have any issues. When I tried to push it longer, that's when I had some issues. So this winter, I think I'm just gonna put them under for like a month and hope
Okay.
that's long enough.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So maybe so kind of switching over to these lacertas. How many different species do you keep right now?
Let me think. So I have jeweled lacertas, Iberian emerald. So the jeweled lacertas, Timon lepidus, Iberian emerald lizards, Lacerta schreiberi, the sand lizards, Lacerta agilis. I
Those
was
are the ones I
working
like.
with the
Yeah.
green. Yeah, they're great. I was working with the green Lacertas, Lacerta viridis, but I'm not
Hmm.
anymore. I'm just trimming the collection. And then the other species now is the Canary Island lizards, Galatea eisentrati, which are like they're really rare. They're black with blue and green markings. Um,
Okay.
I got mine from Eddie Soto. He's
Okay. Yeah.
before me. He's the only one breeding them in the states, and now I think I'm like the only other one. And so it's just us two breeding them right now. So I had mine breed for the first time this year, and yeah, they're awesome. So I guess just now, just 4 species of Lacerta. There was
Okay.
five, but we just trimmed it down before. Now that also doesn't include. I have the Tachydromus smaragdinus, which are the
Okay.
emerald grass lizards from Japan. They are also Lacertas technically, but they're not European Lacertas, and
Yeah.
so a little bit different.
Okay. So what like I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Like what makes you want to work with these like really uncommon animals? Like you said, you and Eddie Soda are the only ones that are working with this one specific species. What drives you to do that?
Yeah, I just, I've done all the common species, and I just like I've been doing this my whole life, and I just like a challenge, and I like to do new things, and I don't want to do the same stuff that everybody else is doing. Like I don't like a big part of what I want to do is just to try to further what we know about herpetoculture and just to focus on species or groups that I think make great pets or great terrarium animals, but are just not common and just don't have a lot of attention. I like to see diversity in herpetoculture and less of like a monoculture type thing. And so it's all of those things together
Hmm.
is why I just focus on the more uncommon stuff.
I like that answer, man. I mean, so many words. Like I said, I feel the same way whenever I'm looking for something to work with. Like I want stuff that like, all right, who's actually really working with this, and how popular is it? So okay, cool. Like I said, I got Haemophilus fasciata. Not many people really work with those. Like I know David Kelly does, and then there's a few other people out there. What else? Like I said, a lot of my Cerdactylis. Like I don't know very many people that have Cerdactylus striatus. I know a lot of people have like Zebrachus because I mean it's a really pretty gecko. I mean, just the pattern on its back is really gorgeous, so it attracts a lot more people. But like Triatus, just like when they hatch out, they're pure black, and then they start developing like these white spots on the back, and then like as a baby, they're like this big, and so no, it's just a little gecko that goes on the ground. That people don't care about that. Me, I love that stuff. No, give me the dirty little brown gecko or the all black with some spots. No, I'm cool. I'm happy. So as far as like, so how do you for like your all your lacertas, or actually we'll stick to like the jewel because most people know what the jewel lacertas are. What is your way of like enriching them for their enclosures? Because I know, I mean, I'm sure you have tons of them, right? So you gotta have them in somewhat of a smaller setup than say a pet owner would, right? So what are some of like the things that you do to make sure they're still staying kind of active and doing what they need to do to stay healthy and mind keep going?
Sure. I mean, I think I keep them in about the same size that most people would. So like 4x2 enclosures.
Okay.
So pretty decent size. I mean, better certainly would be better if somebody can afford or like have the space for like 6 foot enclosures for them. Like even better. But yeah, they are a species unlike the toadhead where they are very active. They'll climb a lot. They'll dig a lot. So it's like lots of branches, lots of cork, lots of hides, multiple hides in the hot spot and the cool spot. Cork bark layers works really well for that because you can have like layers of cork stacked on top of each other, and then they could be up high, above it basking, or they could go underneath the cork and still be warm, or they could bury in then deeper soil if you're able to, because they do like to bury themselves when they want. And so just as much there are species where like pack that enclosure with as much stuff as you can fit in it because they'll use all the space and they'll use all the cage furnishings that you give them.
Okay. And where did the jewel lacertas come from? So like what
Um,
kind of habitat are we looking at?
so they're like Mediterranean, so they're like Spain and Portugal. They might get into France, I'm not sure, but it's like southwestern Europe. I think, yeah, like like Mediterranean climate, so where it's pretty warm and hot in the summer, quite dry in the summer, and then the winters do get quite cold, freezing even for several months out of the year. But they, of all the species I keep, they are the ones that like it the driest and the hottest of all the lacertas that I keep.
Okay.
But they still do need that winter brumation like I do. Again, like they were outside, and they had shelter, of course, but it did frost for a couple nights, and they're fine. They just bury under the soil as long as they can get below the frost layer, they're fine. But yeah, so relatively hot, relatively dry for maybe 2/3 of the year, and then like a third of the year quite cold.
Okay. Nice. So I was like, I get. So when you actually, this is a question I was been thinking about. So because you like you said you have them outside now, do you notice different temperaments from inside to outside?
Yeah, for sure. Especially with the jeweled lacertas in particular. Like inside, like my captive bred jeweled lacertas that I've raised like from hatchling, like I open the cage and they hop on me. They'll eat out of my fingers. They crawl all over like they're an intelligent bearded dragon. And but when they're outside, they're wild. Like they
Hmm.
usually when they see me, they'll dive and under their hide, so that if they ever see movement. So they are definitely more, quote unquote wild when they are outside, and way more like a pet when they're inside. I do have the odd one where I've had a couple over the years where even outside, I can just pick them right up and they're fine. But in general, a little bit more wild when they're outside.
Okay. And so with your enclosures, are you like the outside enclosure, are you moving that whole thing inside, or you have like a temporary one inside for them, so you have like the one that stays outside is outside?
Yeah, it's separate enclosures. I
Okay.
have temporary enclosures in my garage for the winter,
Okay.
and then
No,
other
the reason I asked that it
custom.
was so with their outside enclosures, because they're are they 4x2s as well, or did you like custom do anything for those?
They're custom made.
Okay.
They are that size, about that size, and they are custom made because like I used to use basically just screen enclosures like a Zoomet or an Exoterra or a
Okay.
Zilla screen
Gotcha.
enclosure flopped on its side, and those work fine. But the problem with them is that they are not predator proof and they're not rust proof.
Yeah.
So I had like the screen is just simply too flimsy. Like we have like raccoons here and possums and skunks, and we do have coyotes here, although not as commonly as out west. So we do definitely have predatory animals here. So I did custom order all new like heavy duty screen where
Okay.
like about the only thing that's going to get through there is a bear. Like if a bear decides to get in there,
Damn.
there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
like I live in the burbs, so it's like we get, I had deer in my backyard, and like I've seen foxes and stuff like that, but I've never seen a bear, so I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, now they are heavy duty all screen enclosures.
Okay. So for those outside ones, now do you have it set up a certain way where the sun hits it where you wanted to hit it, or and then they got a place where they can go and duck out, get into the shade and stuff like that?
Yep. So they are. It's really good to have enclosures south facing when they're kept
Mm-hmm.
outside, so you figure out where south is and point them that way because with the way the sun moves from east to west, you always get some
Okay.
pretty decent sun there, and
Okay.
in where they are, so you get and again, like you have to be thoughtful and you have to like really observe your property and see what the sun does at not only when at a certain time but also throughout the year. But so for the most part, where I keep them at south facing, they get pretty direct sunlight early on in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and then later in the day it's more shaded, which is like perfect because then they can warm up in the morning, and then if it gets hot in the afternoon, then they don't have as direct of sun. And then
Mm-hmm.
of course I do have like a lot of they're basically in my garden bed, so I have a lot of like plants around the back of
Okay.
them. There is some like shade from the garden plants there, and of course they have all their hides and substrate to bury into to escape the elements.
Okay. Well, speaking of elements, how do you handle like rainy days over there with them? You just let it go?
Don't do anything. Just let it
Okay.
rain.
Well, yeah. I mean, we just went through a few monsoons, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like it was crazy. Like I had my tree in my front yard was knocked over, like a big thick
Yeah.
tree knocked over. It was like literally like a mini tornado came through and hit just my city, and like the neighbor's place tree was knocked over into the other neighbor's yard, hit the
Yeah.
top of the roof, knocked. It was crazy. I was like, man, I like if something like that happened, I'd be screwed. Like, yeah, my animals are gone.
Yeah. I mean, if there's something like that, if a tree falls like that, would obviously be really bad. But like other than like a tornado, which is very, very uncommon where we are. It does happen, but it is, that's one of those things where it's like in active nature, like what can you do?
Yeah,
But other
yeah.
than that, even we've had some like really, really crazy rainstorms this year.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it really soaked the heck out of them, but they do have hides. I use like the black plastic snake hides that are like low to the ground,
Oh yeah,
and I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
really like don't like the way they look per se, but what I do is I'll put them in there and like half bury them in the soil and then like cover the top with like soil and leaves and stuff. So like because it's plastic, they can get under there and be like, and yeah, the soil is going to be wet, but when they're under there, they're completely sheltered from the rain. Like there's no rain falling on them at that time. So they do have some shelter. And of course it's going to be wet, but what can you do?
yeah, yeah.
Some of my listeners really like it that way.
Okay. Yeah. So when you first started keeping outside, what are some of those mistakes that you made?
Just not being, I guess, like the not being as like careful and thoughtful about like sun location, like
Okay.
either like not getting enough because it depends on the species. You can't just throw them out there is the
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
and like you have to be thoughtful about what species you're keeping and what's best for your climate. So you kind of have to be choosy about what you're going to keep outside because you can't just throw anything out there for a long period of time. You have to match up climates as best you can. But just being careful with the sun. Like I said, south facing is the way to go. Trying if it's in the summer or if you're in an area that's very hot, you want to avoid that afternoon sun. You want early morning sun, but avoid that afternoon sun. But the thing I always like tell people, like I always really recommend outdoor keeping when it's appropriate because I mean it's basically reptile keeping with a cheat code. Like as
yeah,
long as the conditions match up, because it's
yeah.
like
Exactly.
you don't have to light them. You often don't have to water them. They always look better. They always look better and healthier than when they're kept inside. They just look fantastic. But and not everybody can do it. But I do always say that even if you can only keep your animals outside for 1 month out of the year, still do it. It's still going to be worth it for the animal, both in terms of like enrichment and mental and physical stimulation, and just like you can't beat the sun. You can't beat the sun and fresh air.
You can't beat nature. We can only
Mhm.
try to replicate as much as we want, but you're never going to beat nature. So we're getting closer to the end of this. So what are your thoughts on like the future of herpetoculture, and especially when it comes to like educating the public about the lesser known species?
Sure. Well, Mike, that's always been like a major driving factor for me as a teacher. The education side of things is very important. I wish I had more time to do that aspect of things, like especially YouTube. I have so many videos planned, so many species I have yet to cover, so many topics that I want to talk about in videos that I haven't had the opportunity to. But my biggest push, that I try for, and that I do see a shift in the industry, which is really nice, is I've been trying to push and pioneer smaller species because of the fact that it's very simply like easier to provide a high quality life to a smaller animal than it is a larger animal. It's certainly possible to do so for a larger animal, but it's going to take a lot more resources. And most people simply don't have those resources. But, for instance, like a carpet chameleon versus a panther or a veiled chameleon. A veiled chameleon is 2 feet long, and a carpet chameleon is 6 inches long and as big around as my thumb, whereas a veiled chameleon is as big around as my arm. And a 2 by 2 by 4 screen cage for a veiled chameleon is tiny, like they're cramped in it. But that same size enclosure for a carpet chameleon is a mansion, right? It's a huge slice of the forest for them. So I think that that's important, so and I see a lot of people trying to push for a higher standard of keeping and just giving their animals more than what we used to in the past, and I'm certainly just as guilty of that as anyone else, in the past, about just small enclosures, simple, barren, and not really thinking about it. But we're all thinking about it more now, and I think that's great. And I hope that continues in the future of herpetoculture.
Yes, I say I like that. You don't always have to have the biggest animal within your group. Just go with something that's small. That's like I said, I like even your electric blue day geckos. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or like my what is it? I mean my Dipodactylus. I got Dipodactylus galeatus, Pachyodactylus macrolepis, very small geckos. You can give them a
Very cool.
big old no, just say you could give them a 20-gallon, and that would be like just more than what most people would give them. Right? Is a little bit is bigger, more room, more things to look at, more exploring, and more stimulation for them. But as far as A couple more questions. I guess what kind of stuff do you have upcoming? Like, what's what's going to be your latest project, passion project? If it's YouTube, animals, education, anything, what do you got going on?
Well, I would, like I said, I would like to do more YouTube videos. I have lots of things in mind. I do want to put out more. It's just time is difficult. We did recently build a new facility in addition with, so brand new animal space. And so we've
Nice.
been shifted over to that, and it's been, the culmination of a lifetime of work, and it's that's been wonderful. And in terms of animals, like the toad heads are a big project, passion project right now. Like I said, I've really expanded with them this year in the hopes that next year is a great season with them. Continuing to expand with like scorpion tail geckos, and another species that I want to get out there more is the tachydermis smaragdinus, which are
Yeah.
the emerald grass lizards, which are a small arboreal lacerta. They're very communal, very active. They're just a lot of fun. And trying to think, I think that's about it in terms of like newer stuff. But I have about 12 to 15 species that I've been keeping and breeding for a number of years now that I'm just very passionate about. And, just I feel really happy with the state of our collection and of our business right now.
Nice. Well, definitely congratulations on the new facility.
Thank you.
Also, let's see. For people that's going to listen to this, what are some good resources for them for like toadhead agamas, lacertas? Is there anywhere you can point them in that correct direction for them to get some good education?
Sure. Yeah, some like so I do write articles. I try to do for everything that I keep and breed. I have articles written and published for the toadhead agamas and other species and all the lacertas published for free on my website that they've been published in Reptiles magazine, or also I've been writing a lot for Responsible Herpetoculture Journal,
Okay,
which
nice,
is
nice,
based out of Ukraine, out of Bayonne. That's easily the best publication for herpetoculture right now. So those are all really good resources. But then the main thing I always tell people is like to try to do your own research, is just learn as much as you can about where the animal comes from. Right, both like the country, the habitat, the micro habitats, that sort of stuff. So there's no substitute for doing your own research and experimentation. But yeah, there's certainly good info out there. I try to publish everything on my website, and then definitely recommend the Responsible Herpetoculture Journal.
nice, nice. Make sure I put those in the link or in the description. So, last question is, what has been your biggest failures in your reptile keeping career, and what have you learned from those?
Well, yeah, like I mentioned it briefly, but last year I had some awful losses for both the toadheads and my knobtail geckos, Nephrus amii, over
Okay.
brumation. And I can't definitively say like what the reasons for, but I do think that, like in general, it's just I just wasn't careful enough. I was too complacent. So like the thing that I would say that that was a big lesson for me is like, don't get overconfident. Just because you've done something successfully for a while doesn't mean that you can't make mistakes. You have to be open to that that you can make mistakes, and that you simply still have to continue to be at a high level of care in thought, and not just like autopilot through things, which is,
Yeah.
that's, I think that can happen, especially once you've been doing this for a long time. It's easy to just go on autopilot, and just kind of let things go and just do what you've always done, or just not think about it as much. But like, the thing is, with living animals, they're complex systems, and there's always something that you got to watch out for, and you just have to be mindful. And that's one of the things I love about herpetoculture. It's great for mindfulness and for caring about things outside of you.
Nice, nice. Yeah, complacency can kill, and that's in almost anything. Like I work in the kitchen, also complacency, get you hurt, burned. You could die. Just a quick slip, fall, boom, crack your head, something. So always, be
Mhm.
on your toes. Oh, uh, then definitely I feel that because, like I said, past few years I've been kind of complacent with some of my stuff. So now I'm starting to refocus on what brought me here, which was my strophares. Like I love those things. That is my heart and joy right there. Is dealing with strophares. Where can everybody find you at, Frank?
So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and my website. It's all under Living Art by Frank Payne. So if you just search for my name and last name spelled Payne, it should pop up. But yeah, it's like website, Instagram. I post most stuff on Instagram. I'm pretty active on that. I have some nice videos on YouTube, but I need to do more. I'm not as active as I should be. But yeah, all those places.
Nice, nice. Other than that, everybody, it's been a pleasure having Frank on. Everybody else, have a great night, morning, afternoon, whenever you listen to this. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Thanks.
Yo, creeping in the dark, life nocturnal, dark and dark, both paths arboreal to terrestrial. Sticky toes gripping forest students that explore. Listen close, Gecko podcast, that's knowledge galore. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Escaping heat waves, tan under rays, desert sand echoes, sun blazing days. Little hustlers, camouflage a maze, catch them speaking wisdom, the wild on replay. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Shadows unseen, master of the skies, chameleon dream. Listen, tails flip, script getting clean. Gecko Exchange, true reptile fiends. Reptile talk, host Anthony and Jason. Trade secrets flow, no time wasted. From tropics to town, it's sight raining. With every chat, reptile game changing. Scuttling through the leaves, shadows unseen. Master of disguise, chameleon dream. Lizard tails flip, script getting